Welcome to Film Forum Presents, a podcast featuring special live events recorded at our theater in downtown Manhattan, along with newly recorded interviews, conversations, and intros. In this episode, Film Forum Presents goes bi-coastal to bring you a conversation between the legendary director Jules Dassin and Bruce Goldstein, Film Forum's Director of Repertory Programming, recorded at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art in 2004. RIFIFI, Dassin's heist film masterpiece, is now available for home viewing in our virtual cinema at www.filmforum.org. All rental fees support Film Forum. But first, this week's My Film Forum segment, where we hear from you, our audience, about your favorite memories at our theater, continues the West Coast theme with this submission by Eric from Los Angeles.
Hi, my name is Eric Goodis, and I'm a writer who lives in Los Angeles. I haven't lived in New York in a long time, but I remember back in 1996 or so in the winter, Film Forum was playing Taxi Driver. It must have been a restoration. And I sat there and watched it. And, it's just, of course, it's totally amazing. And then I walked out into the village from the movie theater, and it was so cold. It was a really cold winter. I guess the winter of 95, 96. And it's like it didn't matter because I still had that Bernard Herrmann score just kind of coursing through my mind, and the power of that whole movie. And I kind of liked it that it was cold, because it felt like, this is like real, like Taxi Driver's real, where, of course, Taxi Driver's not really real. It's just a kind of a made-up version of New York, but it sort of felt real to me at that time, and I was really glad to see it in New York and at an independent theater, and I wish I could come back and see more movies there. Thanks a lot.
If you would like to share your favorite Film Forum memory, we'd love to hear from you. What movie, series, event, or other happening made you love our cinema or value the communal movie-going experience? You can either record a voice note and email it to ffpresentspodcast@gmail.com or call 760-933-7082 and leave a voicemail. Again, that's ffpresentspodcast@gmail.com or call 760-933-7082. Please keep submissions to 1 minute or less. If you would like to be attributed, please say and spell your name slowly and tell us where you are calling from. And now, here's Bruce Goldstein to tell you more about his conversation with Jules Dassin.
Of all the classic film re-releases I've been associated with, none is more important to me than the 1955 French noir masterpiece RIFIFI, directed by an expat American, Jules Dassin. Billed as Père Lovita, he also played the Chaplin-esque safecracker and ladies' man, César le Millionnaire. In 2000, my Rialto Pictures business partner, Adrian Halpern, and I acquired the U.S. rights for RIFIFI from the French company Gaumont and released it to theaters in new 35mm prints for the first time in 45 years. We also took great pains to capture RIFIFI's flavor with all new subtitles, written by Brooklyn-born, Paris-based translator Lenny Borger, a specialist in French underworld argot. Lenny later worked with us on subtitling such Gallic crime films as Touchez pas au Grisby, Bob le Flambeur, Le Cercle Rouge, Breathless, and other French classics. The re-release of RIFIFI was a box office and critical sensation, giving the picture a whole new life. The New York Film Critics Circle bestowed on us a special award for bringing it back, presented by no less than Jean Moreau. How cool is that? But most important to me personally, RIFIFI led to my friendship with director Jules Dassin, a friendship that endured until his death in 2008. Though born in Connecticut, Jules grew up in East Harlem. He was a New Yorker through and through. Who else could direct the seminal location shot, The Naked City? And note that a new restoration of Naked City will be the reopening repertory event at Film Forum, date to be announced. In 1950, the Hollywood blacklist forced Dassin to move to Paris, where he was without work for 5 years before landing RIFIFI. In 1980, Jules' wife, the legendary Greek star Melina Mercouri, returned with him to live in Athens, Greece, after years in exile during the dark days of the country's military junta. He would remain there for the rest of his life. Following Melina's death in 1994, Jules founded the Melina Mercouri Foundation, continuing her campaign to return the so-called Elgin marbles to their rightful place, atop the Parthenon. I twice visited Jules in Athens, where he lived in a house on a quiet street that had been renamed Melina Mercouri Street. The kid from East Harlem was now a Greek national hero, somewhere between Nelson Mandela and Mother Teresa. At age 88, Jules made the long trip from Athens to New York to help us with the RIFIFI re-release. A little more than a year later, just a few weeks after 9/11, he returned with his 2 daughters, Ricky and Julie, to show support for his native city. During that trip, we hosted a memorable evening with Mr. Dassin at Film Forum, though alas, that interview wasn't recorded. But in 2004, I got a call from Ian Burney, head of the film department at the LA County Museum. Would I ask Jules, now 92, if he'd make the even longer trip to Los Angeles for an appearance with RIFIFI? Jules agreed, but with 2 provisos: that he'd first need a 1-week stopover in New York, and that I would come with him. The resulting Q&A at LACMA, co-sponsored by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and the Greek Press Office, was originally to have been moderated by Greek-American director Penelope Spheris, but at the last minute, her schedule got in the way. We were left without a moderator. "You're going to do it," Jules commanded me. "Me?" I said. "I'm not prepared." "You'll be fine," he said. So, while RIFIFI was running in LACMA's auditorium, I was in the green room, feverishly jotting down some notes, none of which were really necessary in the end. For 4 years, via phone calls and faxes, Jules had been regaling me with stories about his remarkable career, which began in the early 1930s at a socialist summer camp in Massachusetts called Camp Kimberland. So here's that LACMA interview. Warning, the sound quality is not great. There's a lot of extraneous noise, but Jules Dassin's spirit shines through, so please stay with it. Following the audience applause, Jules himself introduces the event with some kind words for Film Forum. Enjoy. Can I say something first?
Before I introduce you, no.
Okay.
He is Bruce Goldstein, who knows more about movies than anybody. It's a film forum in New York. This is the best theater in the world. Hello, Bruce.
Is this on? I also want to tell you my only other credential for doing this interview, and I'm a last-minute pinch hitter for Penelope Spheris, and I am not Penelope Spheris, you notice that. I've never even seen Wayne's World. I'm also the distributor of Rialto. We released it in 1999 to great success, and that's how I became friends with Jules, and it's the greatest thing I ever released because of that.
Thank you, Bruce.
And I'm wondering whether this ovation is for Jules Dassin, the great French director, or for Per Lovita, the great Italian actor who plays César le Milanais, that incredible performance. And I'm constantly getting messages of, do you know Jules Dassin? Jules Dassin. Everyone thinks you're a French director. What are you, really?
I am Jules Dassin from Middletown, Connecticut. It's a list.
Well, we went over the, but prior to RIFIFI, you made, and he was shocked to hear this, 11 features in Hollywood.
I refuse. I refuse.
Beginning in 1942, he'd also made a short he doesn't want to know anything about for MGM. But he made 7 films as a contract director for MGM, 2 for producer Mark Hellinger, and 2 film noir masterworks for Fox. Correct? So how did you wind up making the quintessential French film noir?
Well, that's a long voyage, my friend. The years that you mentioned that MGM were a problem for me. I didn't know what I was doing. Except that I knew that every day, for a number of films, I would enjoy the privilege and the fun of working with Marcia Hunt. Hey, Marcia, if you're there, I love you. What was your question?
How did you wind up making a film in France?
Well, there was a time when I became unemployable in the United States. There's a long history of this. But anyhow, a man was making a film, producing a film called RIFIFI chez les hommes. And told me that I was the only man who could make this film. Now, this was after 5 years of nada, no work at all. But I still could not say, why the only? He said, I tell you, we have a problem with RIFIFI. You see, the bad guys are all North Africans. And at this time, we are having, France is having such problem with Algeria and so on. Well, you can make the bad guys Americans. And when I said to him, have you thought of making them French? He hadn't. Well, anyhow, I got that job for the same reason I was blacklisted. So.
That's all you wish to say about the blacklist?
Enough.
Okay.
We have other things to worry about these days. I was thinking, for instance, about the Patriot Act. That kind of stuff.
So let's talk about your painful early movie career a little bit. Your painful early career. But you started in the theater in the 30s, Federal Theater.
Yes.
Yiddish theater.
Yes.
And a man showed us an ad from the 30s from your Camp Kinderland days at Yiddish camp.
Do you know that who
Featuring plays by the brilliant young director, Jules Dassin.
So this is a wonderful, oh boy, most enjoyable, my most creative years was in Camp Kinderland, where workers used to go for their holidays. And they thought they'd have holidays until I grabbed them, made them act in the plays. And it was a wonderful, wonderful place, wonderful experience. We were all very left dreamers until we stopped dreaming. But it was a wonderful place. It's have wonderful souvenirs and joyous, joyous times. How did that come into your script?
I was building up to how you got into the movies.
Oh, yeah.
Jules Dassin.
I got into the movies, maybe by mistake, I don't know. Oh, it's too long to say.
But you started in a program at RKO where you were brought in to observe
Oh,
film.
that's right. I was brought to be observer. That is, you observe, and you keep quiet. But they were giving me $250 a week. That was. I remember my agent saying, "Maybe we can get you more." I said, "Whoever wants more?" And I just. Well, anyhow, so I observed Hitchcock. Now, observed is wrong. I was so terrified of this man, so dazzled by his technique, that I really used to hide in the corners to keep out of sight, and he would torture me. After each take, he would say, "Is that all right for you? Can I print it?" He gave me a bad time. But my contract was for 6 months to observe. I also observed Garth Kanin make a film with Carol Lombard and Lawton, who became a good friend. And then after 6 months were over, they said, "You're fired." I said, "Oh, I've been watching all this time, you've been paying me," and I say, "Go home, you're fired." Well, somehow, I got a job with MGM. And this was after having watched Hitchcock. And I said, "Goodbye, goodbye." He didn't know I had been fired, and he said, "All right, now you get ready to make a picture. But remember this, don't ever make pictures with children, animals, or Charles Lawson." And it so happened that years later, I was making a film with Lawton, an animal, and children. You can imagine the exchange of telegrams.
For the record, Canterville goes with Charles Lawton and Margaret O'Brien, but I don't remember the animal. And for the record, the Hitchcock film was Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
That's right, yeah.
So then you got a contract at MGM, and your first feature was Nazi Agent with Conrad Veidt as good and evil identical twins. One a loyal American, the other a Nazi. Who could ever forget it?
Me, I'll forget it.
Well, then how about Reunion in France with John Wayne and Joan Crawford as French resistance fighters?
Don't listen to this man. He doesn't know what he's saying.
What about Marcia's two films, Letter to Evie and The Affairs of
Marcia. Hope she, I love her. Next.
What made you leave MGM? By the way, Faye Kane told us tonight, this very evening, that you were Louis Mayer's favorite young director. He loved you.
I wish he hadn't. I don't know where Faye got that story, because after a while we were not very polite with each other. And my whole struggle was to get away from that contract. It was those days when they had those slave contracts. When you were on the contract for 7 years, they could option continue every 6 months. You could not. So you were hooked for 7 years. And that's a long term. No more to say about that.
Nope. No more Louis Mayer stories? Is it true that you once said Louis Mayer's arm around your shoulder meant his hand was closer to your throat?
I'm not sure I made that up.
Okay, so you leave MGM and you work for Mark Hellinger, independent producer, working for Universal, making pictures for Universal International. Made 2 extraordinary films, Brute Force, prison movie, which just screened here yesterday, I think. And a seminal film in the history of movies, The Naked City, first major sound film made largely on the streets of New York.
Yeah. That was a very interesting experience. The producer was Mark Hellinger, a very strange, interesting man who died very young, only because he had read in the newspaper that there were really only 2 great brandy drinkers, one being Winston Churchill and the other Mark Hellinger. But he didn't like second place and killed himself very young. A nice man, and a producer who took care of the director. The studio was criticizing. They didn't want the film to be shot away from studio. And they said, this kid is making us a travelogue. But he was wonderful and steadfast, but kept on with his cognac.
And he died before the picture opened.
I'm sure of that, because at that time, the blacklist was in the air, and particularly with the screenplay. A screenplay was written by Albert Maltz, based on a story by Malcolm Wall. And so, when the film was finished, Albert Maltz and the whole blacklist thing was in the atmosphere. And I was going off to New York to do a play, and I said goodbye to Mark. And I said, now that's the final cut. That's the final cut. Because there were all these whispers around. Because in the film, there's much that was taken out. Because I felt about the contrasts in big city. The different lives in big cities. I need more water, sorry. And many cuts were made. And I am sure to this day that they were not made with Mark's knowledge. I think they got their hands on it after Mark died. And I saw the New York opening and just walked out of the theater weeping because things I cared about so much in the film were taken away. But that's a long time ago, and I'm okay now.
It's still a great film, and it's screening here, and I think Malvin Wall who's here tonight.
Yes.
Will be introducing it on.
Oh, really?
When it shows in this series, yeah. You were one of the first to do extensive location work in New York. Sound here.
Actually, that's not true. The first man who did a lot of it was a house on 92nd Street by whose help?
Henry Hathaway.
Henry Hathaway. I think we did more away from the studio, and most of the interiors also in New York.
He didn't get up to the top of the Williamsburg Bridge, though.
No.
This was before the days of, nowadays, my neighborhood in New York, every other week is filming day. There's 20 vans. You didn't have these luxuries they have today. Location. How did you film on location in New York in those days?
Oh, boy, all kinds of tricks, because people would gather by the hundreds interested in watching shooting. And we had all kinds of tricks to hide the camera. I had a portable newsstand. I had gardener, florist. I forget any language anymore. A florist delivery thing with mirrors on it, but see-through mirrors, so I could use that. But my favorite, because they used to know where you were going to shoot. They found out from the hotels for the actors, and sometimes you'd come to the location and there were truly hundreds of people. How do you shoot? So I had one guy with me for most of the film. He was great. I would put him up on the ladder about 200 yards away with an American flag, and he'd be ranting against the society of our time, and the people would rush to him, and I'd get my shot. Yeah.
So after Hellinger died, Naked City made you kind of a sensation in the industry, did it not? And you were signed by Zanuck for a couple of pictures at Fox, where you made two more location movies, Thieves Highway, shot in San Francisco.
True.
And then Night in the City.
Night in the City. How much time do we have here? Because I made this public declaration. I said, I'm old enough to say what I feel. I like Darryl Zanuck. And I did. And I used to say to him, Darryl, look, your ambition is to be a nice guy, but you can't make it. But he is the man when things got really ugly in California, in Hollywood. And after a spirited meeting with the heads of Fox, including the brothers Skouras, in one little interesting passion, he said he was going to step on my neck because I was dirty red. And well, there's a long story preceding that and why all of that, but anyhow, that night, and the end was get the hell out of here, so forth, and a historic thing happened. Darryl Zanuck came to my house. Now, my house was not in Beverly Hills, it was Bronson Avenue, and that was not very chic. But he came, and he said, you're leaving for London tomorrow. I said, I can't. I have problems, family problems. He said, listen, you have family problems, you will have family needs. Now, you're going to London to make this picture because, kiddo, it might be the last film you ever make. So, I went there, and I want to tell you one more thing about Zanuck. He did say, get that script going out as fast as you can and start shooting with the most expensive scenes so they won't stop you there. And a little before, about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before the shooting was supposed to begin, he called me by telephone and said, do you owe me one? And I said, yes, I do. He said, all right, I want you to write in the part for Gene Tierney. I said, what part? And then a few weeks before shooting, Gene Tierney is a big star. He said, you'll do that for me, won't you? And I did. And this man, who is known to be so tough and cruel and ruthless, he did this. And he told me later, he told me then, that Jean had just had a big chagrin d'amour. She had a bad time with a love story, love affair that didn't work out because she was suicidal. And he said, the only thing that helped this girl is to put her to work. Now that was the cruel, terrible Darryl Zanuck.
What was the name of the movie?
The movie was Night in the City.
So, you never returned to Fox? Did you ever go back to the lot?
No, I was not allowed back on the lot. I don't blame the son Zanuck, but such was the atmosphere. And to correspond with an editor by telephone is not the best way to edit film, and nor with the man who wrote the music, Franz Waxman. And this was all done by telephone. But that then was the end of my Hollywood career. And it took 5 years to get another job, which was RIFIFI.
But you did go back to the lot.
I did go back to the lot in 1968. I made one picture in the States. Just that one more.
At Fox?
It was at Fox.
68.
No, it was at Paramount.
Oh, no, that was uptight at Paramount.
Yes, uptight.
I'm talking about when you went back to the Fox lot yesterday.
I was welcomed with open arms.
And we've got to tell you why we were at the Fox lot.
Yes, I will tell you why. It was a wonderful trip. First of all, they took me to the restaurant with all kinds of folklore of movies, and they gave me a salad. How do you guys eat so much food? They piled it on. Well, that was nice. And actually, I met with this man who, there are heroes in the industry who are not the stars or the directors, the men who preserve films and restore films.
And the women.
And the women. And this young, very handsome man was just restoring, putting back in, and I saw bits of it, and I just say salut for Night in the City. which will be shown here.
I just want to say something about Night in the City. We saw a print in Athens, which I showed at Film Forum for a week, which was gorgeous. What we saw yesterday was 10 times more gorgeous. It's the most beautiful black and white print I've ever seen.
Extraordinary.
And it's going to be shown in this series. And if you miss it, you should kill yourselves. They found the original nitrate camera negative. And it's a restoration of 20th Century Fox and the Academy. And the young man was Sean Belston, and there are lots of other people working on this project.
Brilliant, unsung people. Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of others, by the way. I'm working on your...
I think we should let the people go home now.
Oh, it's up to you. We haven't even mentioned Melina. Because RIFIFI was a turning point in your life in many ways, and it indirectly led to your meeting your future wife. Did it not?
What led to it?
RIFIFI. By your winning the award at Cannes.
RIFIFI was chosen to represent France in the Cannes Film Festival. And at that same year, a film, Melina's first film called Stella, was being shown. Oh, hello there. Greek film, very modest budget, but everybody was toting her to win the prize. That was the talk of the festival. And she believed it, and other people did too. Am I getting away from the mic here? Anyhow, it turned out that I won the prize at the festival for Best Direction, and Melina did not get the prize. And leaving there, I saw her sitting in the corner and kind of weepy. And I came to her and said, I introduced myself and said, the prize is a prize, but you're worth so much more. And she said in her most spirited Greek accent, yeah, you got the prize. Screw off. And so does love at first sight.
And you wound up making 8 pictures with her?
Everyone a joy.
And 2 phenomena. 2 phenomena of Never on Sunday. Another great heist picture, Tough Happy. And Never on Sunday was an enormous worldwide hit, and nobody wanted to back it originally.
Nobody. Because the budget I was asked for was shocked them. $100,000. And I couldn't get it. It was very, very tough. And finally, they loaned me $60,000 with the condition that when I finished it, because I had no script, I told them I want to make this picture. They said, can we read the script? I said, I didn't write it yet. I want to write it in Athens. And they said, well, we can't do business that way. And it's understandable. So they loaned me $60,000, which if I had to pay back at the time, I'd go to jail. And then they saw the script and they said, okay. And but then I had the problem of the actor. And I didn't have more than $20,000 in the budget for an actor. So I played it. Oi, 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 did I play it. And I must tell you this, I love this story. But it became a great success immediately. And just by chance, it was running in Paris and Champs-Élysées. And I run into Jack Lemmon. And I said, "You here? How long are you here for?" "A while." And I ran to the Paris representative of United Artists, but a member of the authority. I said, "Look, please, will you give me money to remake the film with Jack?" And they said, "Yeah." Because it was already a real promising hit in its first releases. And Jack Lemmon. And so I said, "Jack, look, I can do this, put them all together. It won't be more than 3 weeks' work. Come and they give you a lot of money, Jack." I said, "Well, let's see." And we went to the theater together, and he watched it. And to the end of it, he said, "Listen, Julie, you're so terrible in this film, that's charming. Let it alone." And that is a true story, word for word.
And as a result, also, tourism in Athens skyrocketed.
Yes, it did. Enormous. A film for tourism is such an extraordinary thing, especially if it's an out-of-the-way place that not many people and not the films have been made. I made Topkapi in Turkey, and the next year, boom, tourism. It works with films. Anyhow, don't I think we should say goodnight? Yes.
We have to talk about what you're doing now. I mean, we're in a museum after all. It's actually what he's going to discuss is actually verboten in a museum among curators. But you and Melina were together for 40 years, and
I'm glad you asked me to talk about that. When Melina died, I made a foundation called the Melina Mercury Foundation to continue work that she had begun. Melina was the longest reigning Minister of Culture in the history of Greece. British news reporter asked her what would be her first act as minister. She said, "I would ask for the return of the Elgin marbles." The great majority of the British people say, "Give them back. Give them back." One of the last polls reaching to 80%, give them back. And a great majority of the Labour Party deputies, say give them back. And we hope to have a new museum ready to receive them, because the museum that we have now is not ample enough. It's old. It's built on the Acropolis, which is wonderful, or near. But there's not enough room, enough space, not enough air conditioning and so on. And we're building this new museum, and it's a beauty. It's a beauty. But there are all kinds of delays and problems. You had to expropriate different houses around. So it took a long time. But it will be, and everyone knows, they will call it Melina's Museum. I thank you for being here. I feel friendship. I want to thank the museum for creating this affair with the help of the Greek press office, who were wonderful, and that the Screen Directors Guild, the Screenwriters Guild, and the Academy are sponsoring this event. I am very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Film Forum Presents. If you like what you just heard, please be sure to subscribe to get future episodes and rate and review so that more movie lovers can find us. Film Forum is an independent nonprofit cinema, and our doors have been kept open for nearly 50 years thanks to the invaluable support of our members and donors. Please visit www.filmforum.org for details on membership, as well as information and showtimes for our current programming. See you at the movies.